Hi. So, my name is Venera, and today we will talk about must-have practices of web accessibility. So, before we jump to the presentation, I would like to thank the organizers of this very important event and for giving me this opportunity to be here with you. So, it's very, very cool. Thank you. So, a little bit about me. I'm a front-end developer at DevExperts, and for the past 2 years, I've been focusing on accessibility. I have quite some years in IT already. I do mentorship. I was born in Kazakhstan and spent half of my life in Portugal. So this beautiful city is my home. So, go Porto. Sorry. So, in this presentation, I will give a brief introduction to the concept of web accessibility. We'll talk about some tools like screen readers, and then we will analyze a real-life example I prepared for you. So, let's start. A poorly designed product only serves a small subset of the total potential audience. And this is where UI UX comes into play, to trying to make the product more user-friendly and intuitive for the average user, right? But, however, even with these improvements, that still leaves out a huge chunk of total potential audience who might still find your product hard to use, depending on their physical and cognitive abilities. So, that's where accessibility comes into play. So that's where accessibility comes into play, trying to get that percentage as close to 100% as possible and turning your product truly inclusive. So, just like designing UI UX, you have to follow certain specific techniques, and creating accessible product requires following certain standards. And among these standards, I think it's very important to highlight web content accessibility guidelines and accessible rich internet applications. So both of them are created and maintained by World Wide Web Consortium. It's an international community founded by the same inventor of the World Wide Web, a little trivia, so by Tim Berners-Lee. So these guidelines and applications, they work together, they complement each other. So guidelines say what to do, and the applications say how to do, or the specifications say how to do. So these standards rely on 4 major principles. Perceivable, so your product should be visible regardless the viewport size and the zoom percentage. It should be operable, so it should work with a mouse and all kind of keyboards, screen readers, and other tools. It should be understandable, so you have to use a clear and concise language and try to create a predictable layout using header, body, and footer, so try to keep it familiar. And at the end, robust. So it should work in all of the common devices and browsers. So, to test our work, there are some dismissible tools, just like color contrast checker. You can do some manual or automated testing, but in my opinion, the most important of all of them are actually screen readers. So what are the screen readers? They're basically screen readers. So yeah, I think it's clear. So it's a software that helps mainly users with visual impairments to try to navigate through your digital content. It basically translates on-screen text into audible speech and sometimes sends to a braille display. And In this table, you can see the list of the most commonly used screen readers of the market. This is a result of a fresh survey. And so NVDA and JAWS are software for Windows. VoiceOver is for macOS. And at the Vexpert, we use NVDA and VoiceOver because JAWS is paid. So, okay. Yeah. Using screen reader is fairly easy, actually. So you have to just turn it on and start focusing on elements using a mouse or a keyboard. Like I record. Oops. Okay. This video is not playing. So anyways, I recorded here the example of usage of VoiceOver, one of the screen readers. So basically, if this video played, the focus should be jumping from one button to another, and the screen reader basically reads the content and the type of the element. And when you use screen reader with a keyboard, you can use those next shortcuts. Tab is used to jump from one interactive element to another, like button to button, not text to text. The combination of Shift and Tab is basically reversed tab. Enter and space is used to select an item, and arrow keys are used to navigate from throughout the entire content from top left and bottom right. Yes. So now let's analyze a real-life example I prepared for you. So this will be a color picker, because I think color encapsulates a bunch of problems, and I bet you've seen this color picker in a bunch of places, especially in online clothing shops. Usually they are just some list of colors without any tooltip or description. You can't even navigate using keyboard. So it's really poorly done. So I understand that we all have different backgrounds here, so we will focus on the list itself. So I removed all of the unnecessary details around, so we have only the list. And this is the code for the list of a typical front-end developer. So do we have front-end developers here? I got some, okay. So, colleagues, you might understand when I say that we have tendency of overusing divs for everything. So that's okay, it happens. But this code is actually an accessibility nightmare. So let's see why. So first of all, this is how users with color blindness will see your list. So as you can notice, in some of the situations, it is pretty difficult to distinguish between the colors, especially the gray and the green ones. So now that we lack any descriptive text and tooltips, it becomes quite impossible to distinguish the colors. Okay. This is also a video, it's not playing. Okay. So I made another recording here. So basically, users with visual impairments have to use a VoiceOver. So anybody who would rely on VoiceOver have a hard time for them. This component might as well not exist, because when you try to focus, this VoiceOver doesn't recognize the pile of divs as a list. This focusing on SVG, so basically it's just reading frame image, and that's it. So it's not bringing any useful information for the user. So the first and foremost step to improve our situation would be to use HTML semantics. So what are the HTML semantic tags? There are basically the regular HTML tags with extra information. And to be fair, HTML is actually a mother tongue of the web. So it's a sole foundation. And when we use non-semantic tags such as div, spans, we are basically speaking in gibberish. So, and when we use semantic tags such as body, header, footer, main, etc., they all convey meaning. They tell assistive technologies about the content structure and how to handle it. So that's what I did here. I basically replaced a couple of divs with the correct semantic ones, with an ordered list and list item, the first and second one. And let's, okay, this will not play. Okay. No, it's not playing. Okay, so the voiceover now recognizes that we have a list, and that list has 2 items. So this is already better, but it's not perfect. So, and to make it truly accessible, we have to use ARIA attributes. So ARIA attributes are basically, well, similarly to HTML semantic tags, they give clues to the assistive technologies about what is what. And the ARIA attributes are part of the specifications I mentioned earlier. And to know which specification, which ARIA attributes to use, you have to follow the guidelines. So, so any HTML semantic tag comes with built-in information. So you can check it yourself by, like, for example, inspecting a button, and you go to the accessibility tab in your inspector, and you can see the accessibility tree, all the attributes, properties, etc. So this is an example for a button. And in case of a navigation, you can even see all the links directly connected to that navbar. The funny thing is that even though you can make any HTML element accessible using ARIA attributes, actually the first rule of ARIA is to not use ARIA. That's because if you have an HTML semantic tag that conveys the user's behavior you're looking for, you should use that instead of trying to recreate the wheel, right? I have another stupid example here. So you can actually recreate a button. It's easy. Just add a bunch of attributes, and then add a bunch of CSS, and also use tons of JavaScript to make it functional. So don't use the first one. Always try to use semantic. And this is the final code. As you can see, this is way bigger than the first one I showed. But don't worry, we'll see each attribute one by one. So let's start. So tab index indicates the focus order when user uses tab key. So, and here I'm basically ensuring that it's reachable by keyboard. And if we wanted this to hide, to be not exposed to screen readers, we can add tab index -1. And if we want to create some fancy focus order, we can add tab index 1, 2, 3, whatever. And here, so to give a little bit context to our list, for the users with visual impairments, I'm creating here a label and connecting it through attribute called area labeled by. So an advantage of using this way is that you can actually connect tons of labels to one list, for example, if there's any need for that. And otherwise, you can use attribute called area label. It will only read the string, the text that's inside area label. So one warning, in some situations, when you're using this attribute, the screen reader, instead of reading the content, it will read the content of the attribute and not the content of the element. So be aware. and roles. So I'm adding here role list box to indicate that user can select items from a list of options. Therefore, I'm also adding a role option for each item. And now that these items are interactable and you can select them, I'm also adding an attribute called ARIA selected. So if it's false, because it's not selected, if it's true, then it's selected. I'm also highlighting a class, CSS class focus there, because it's good practice to create a very outline with a bright color when user is focusing using keyboard. So because not all users with visual impairments are blind. So they see unfocused, and when you have an outline, they know exactly where they are. And also you can add attribute ARIA disabled true or false to deliberately omit some options in your list. This attribute basically indicates the currently focused or active item. So in our case, is the first item. So when we are jumping from one item to another, the content of ARIA active descendants is replaced with the ID of that item, basically. Why it's done that way and not we're not jumping, actually moving the focus from one element to another, because it's just better performance-wise. You have to manage the ID and not the focus itself. Okay, so here it will also not play. So anyways, I recorded here the quote from the inspector. So what would here happen? I would change the focus from one element to another, and the content of ARIA active descendant would be changing, being replaced with the ID of the currently focused item. And at the end, ARIA hidden. So why I'm using this attribute? Because I'm using it on SVG, because I already created a descriptive text for each item. So we don't have to focus on the SVG itself, because it doesn't bring any additional information. So I'm just hiding it. And also, I'm hiding the label that I created to give a context for the list, because in this situation, sighted users don't need more context. They know that it's a color picker. So to remove that informational and visual pollution, I'm just hiding it, both from screen reader and also using a class, CSS class hidden. So this is the final code once again. And also, when you're creating an HTML markup, you can always go to the valupdater.w3.org website. It's an official website by W3C. You can paste it to your markup, and it will say if it's accessible or not, and show you the errors. It's a really great website. So this is the final result. Okay, it will not show. Okay, so basically when I was focusing, each item would have a really bright blue outline. And the outline would be only visible when you're using keyboard. And here, I made a recording using a voiceover. So in this situation, voiceover is reading the name of the list. So it says entering our list of colors. It knows that it's a list. It knows how many items they have. It knows which item is selected and the content of each item. So now we have a truly accessible list. And just summing up everything, always stick to the appropriate HTML semantics and attributes. And use smartly the white space, try to keep your UI clean and familiar, and also use really nice, like contrasted colors. Always try to describe your content. Depending on each situation, you might have to create a specific keyboard navigation. So be aware of that. And test it. So test it with screen readers in different browsers, devices, markup. There are millions of ways of testing, so test it. So that's it. So you have the resources if you're interested, the resource I talked about. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Venera, for your talk.